Many are predicting that the worst is yet to come, which is unfortunate, said one person here. Until now, they've enjoyed the reputation of being the nation's icebox.
Watched a burglar in his home this morning by webcam.
As a journalist of over 25 years, stories are what make my world turn.
Reporting live from the Dallas newsroom tonight, Jeff Crilley, Fox 4 News.
But in 2008, I took the jump from my familiar life and started a PR firm from my home.
We're talking about anyone with a camcorder like the one I'm using becomes a television network.
We started slowly growing the company, and we now have over 100 clients, and we've branched into the world of live digital broadcasting. I now own 8 different TV studios and have a huge team, and the stories that I now get to share are sometimes the most important of my life. Life has a funny way of coming around full circle. This is the Jeff Crilley Show. Okay, I got to tell you, I'm not often intimidated, but I am intimidated by my guest. It's Donna Arp Weitzman. She is a prolific author. Donna, thank you for being on the show.
Jeff, I'm so excited. I have not been on your show now in a while, and I cannot believe how big you are.
Thank you.
I'm intimidated because I don't even know where to walk in this huge studio anymore.
Well, you are so kind. You are so kind. And part of your story that impresses me is just reinventing yourself, because you've had many lives. I want to just kind of whet the appetite. Let me flash up the books. I mean, I wrote one book, it almost killed me. You've now written 5 books.
Well, I've actually written more, but I've published 5, yeah.
Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. Okay, we're gonna get to that in a second, but let's start with your story, because you're just a small town girl, small town Texas. Mm-hmm. So where'd you grow up?
I grew up on a farm ranch by Bowie, Texas, between Bowie and Henrietta. I bet a lot of you don't know where that is, but it's by Wichita Falls.
And your career has gone in many different directions.
Crazy. I try to remake myself every 10 years. That's why I'm never very successful at anything.
It's not true.
But yeah, I started out, as a psychologist working for the state of Texas. And then from there, I went into corporate world. And from there, I went into my own business. And from there, I went into whatever. I don't even remember anymore.
You were the mayor?
Yeah, I was the mayor in Colleyville, Texas, which I still love, even though I live in Dallas. And in politics for a while, which I loved, and I retired again about 10 years ago and decided to write books.
Well, so that you inspire me, because it's one of those things. There's a saying, the one-day novel. Everybody's going to write a novel
right.
one day, and it never happens. And you've written so many. Let's start with the very first one.
My very first book was Cinderella Has Cellulite,
which is the best title ever.
This is my bulwark. This is my bell cow, as I say.
Okay, what was the book about?
Well, when I was single suddenly again in my late 50s, I got thrown into the dating world, which was totally traumatic. I had no idea what a dating site was. I hadn't dated in 25 or 30 years. And so when I remarried my husband, Herb Weitzman, which has now been almost 10 years ago, I decided to write down all of the trauma and to laugh about it instead of crying about it. And it became a book because my girlfriends loved it and everybody encouraged it. And it became a book and it became bestseller. And now it's sold all over the world. And it's been selling for about 5 years now.
It's just the best title ever. Honestly, it's one of those, they always say that, everything is in the title, and people will buy the book just because of that title.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, absolutely.
We're going to fast forward because you've written so many books. Let's go to your latest book.
Okay.
All right. Tell us about.
Well, after I'd written 3 humor books, which Cinderella started out as, it's sort of a satirical humor, and then I wrote Sex and the Siren, which is for older women dating again and finding new love, or maybe not. And then I decided to give Donald Trump and Melania some advice. So I wrote an advice book for marriages. It's a humor book, and it's called Dear Melania.
Which I love that title.
And it's about a fictional psychologist, which would be me, writing to Melania to improve her love life. And so anyway, after that, I was kind of done with writing humor for a while, and I decided that I would write a book about a serial killer that's really lived in my head for about 40 years. Wow. And that serial killer is a real person, and his name, and you can Google him, is Henry Lee Lucas. And Henry Lee Lucas was a serial killer who was actually caught in Texas. He did not start out in Texas, but one of the last people he killed was a friend of my mother's, and her name was Mrs. Catherine Rich. And again, you can see all this on Google. But he has been in my mind all these years, and so I wanted to write something about murder, mayhem, sex, and religion. And that's what it's based on. Henry Lee Lucas falling in love with another serial killer, which is a woman, which I understand, according to Hollywood and to film producers, there's very few books written about female serial killers.
Wow. And this is your first attempt at a kind of a crime novel.
It is a crime novel. It's actually a psychological thriller, is what they tell me in the movie business to call it. I don't even know what to call it. But it is based on true characters and fictional characters.
Okay, since you mentioned the movie business, this thing has taken off.
It has. It has stunned me, actually, but it didn't stun me any more than Cinderella Has Cellulite, which is now in its 4th printing. But Twisted Retribution was in the top 2% on Amazon the first month it came out. It's been out a few months now. And I have since signed a movie deal with Torfoot Films, which is a very famous film producer who's made many, many films. And he read it, the head of Torfoot Films, and loved it. And so it's going to be made in a film in the next 18 to 24 months.
I was so excited for you. All right, who gets to star as you in the movie?
Oh my gosh, I'm not in it at all. I'm not. We keep talking about who's going to be in the movie, and the producer keeps saying they're too old. I'm like, what do we want a 13-year-old to be a serial killer? So I don't know what's going to happen, but anyway, and it may not be named Twisted Retribution. It may have another name, they tell me, which is fine.
Yes.
But my 2 things is it cannot be pornography.
Yes.
So I signed that out. You
good,
can't be pornography on my film. And the other thing was to make it in a certain time frame. That was my 2 big things. Because, Cinderella's been in Hollywood now for 4 years with a script written. So it can lay on shelves in Hollywood for a long time. But we didn't want Twisted Retribution to do that.
Okay,
so.
If that wasn't enough, you're also a very accomplished speaker. We've got a little clip of you speaking.
I don't know about that.
I think this was maybe a Mad Hatter event or what?
I don't know. It looks Mad.
Yeah. So, and when you're called to speak, what are you often called to speak about?
Well, I've got 2 speeches coming up now about how to reintroduce yourself after you retire.
Oh, cool.
In other words, what are you going to do with your life when you're, 60 or 50 or 70 and you've got all these healthy years left? What are you going to do? You're not going to sit around and watch Donna on TV or Jeff on TV. You're going to go and do something you want to do. So that's what this is talking about.
I've heard you. I've had the pleasure of hearing you speak. You're delightful. You're funny. You're charming.
You.
There's something about that. Your accent. You pull it all together.
I love people.
And I do remember when we first started working together. I said, I'm thinking you're a dating expert. And I remember you saying, me, a dating expert? I said, you've written a book on it, so you have to be a dating expert. We're going to roll a clip because you're often called to give love advice.
I am. I just gave some love advice to a friend this morning, actually.
What is that like? I mean, to have people on TV ask you questions about love advice. Is it weird that you've suddenly become this love and relationship
dating expert? I don't know. Maybe I was just brave enough to write about it. But my friend this morning lives in Houston, and he recently remarried, and I told him to read Twisted Retribution and don't be like the husband in it. That was my advice. So he said he would. He's bought the book since then on Amazon.
Oh my goodness! And you probably, if you had to guess, how many interviews have you done in your life?
In my life?
Thousands and thousands.
Yeah, or speeches. Yeah, because I was mayor and I was in elected office for 6 years, and I did a lot of speaking then. I spoke when I was in the corporate world. I was a recruiter for Procter & Gamble, and I spoke a lot. And then I've spoken on my books hundreds of times, so I'm not sure.
Okay, so give some advice to some people watching this right now who say, I want to be her.
They don't want to be me. I have cellulite.
I have stuff.
Remember? Cellulite.
I have stuff on my bucket list. I haven't gotten around to doing it. We're in a new year. What advice would you give? And that's your camera right there. Look right on the camera. What would you say to the person who says, I just can't, my get up and go has left?
You know what? I do three words only. Just do it. The biggest impediment to authors, and I talk to lots and lots of people who want to write a book, but they never really put the pen to the paper or the finger to the computer keys.
Yes.
Just start writing it, and you'll get help. People will help you. I knew nothing about writing a book, but people will help you. But it's always that way. 95% of it's just doing it.
Wow. And she is accessible. She has a very popular, wildly popular Facebook page. We're going to put up her contact information so you can reach out to her on Facebook. There's your Donna Arp Weitzman Facebook page. And of course, we'll be sharing videos and tips. But you are amazing. Thank you so much for being on the show.
I love being with Jeff Crilley. He is an amazing, amazing person. Thank you so much.
You're so awesome. You're so awesome. All right, that's it for now. We'll see you next time.